The al-Hillis family of Claygate in England thought they were escaping some tension when they drove to France in September of 2012. They towed their caravan behind their BMW station wagon to do some camping in the mountains of Savoie. They would never make it home, the victims of a terrible tragedy that remains unsolved.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Weird World Podcast.
That was a little bit of a chipper high after that tease, Carrie.
I thought I'd give everybody a moment.
Okay, well,
One upbeat moment.
Yeah, this is not an upbeat story. I know we had the Epstein saga not that
Yeah,
long ago.
I
This
know.
is also not something that is going to be super upbeat, but it is what it is a true mystery, a mystery that is going to end with really no satisfactory of who done it, but a ton of questions, including what exactly happened, when did it happen, the sequence of events that happened, and not just the target. There's a lot of disagreement over who was the target of this terrible tragedy, if there even was a target, a literal target in the common sense of that for this horrible crime.
Hang on.
Yes.
We didn't say our names.
Oh, okay. What's your name?
My name's Carrie. What's your name? Okay. Hi,
I'm
Dean.
And the next thing we should say right now is that we are going to have a trigger warning for this. This is does not only involves a terrible crime, but there are children involved in this crime.
Okay.
So,
and I know nothing.
No, you don't. You've never heard of the Annecy murders. This is the Lake Annecy is a lake in the Savoie department or region. Is a classic province of France. Is over along.
Classic.
Well,
so it's one of the classics.
France has ordered their country into all these little departments.
Oh.
And so those things like Burgundy and Normandy and things like that are mostly gone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have departments that have sort of carved it up in a different way. And Savoie remains, it's one of those provinces in the old days of France, and it is also a department in the new modern France.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think sometimes the borders are close, but it's not, they kind of didn't always pay attention to those classic provinces.
Okay.
So our story starts with Saad al-Hillis. He was a 50-year-old British citizen born in Iraq. Al-Hillis, he worked as a design engineer for a satellite technology company called Surrey Satellite Technology. They lived in the town of Claygate in the county of Surrey. His wife was named Iqbal. She was 47. She was a dentist. But I think she still practiced dentistry, but she was really kind of, in England at least, she was a devoted mother and wife, and she was very quiet. She really kept to herself. She didn't have a lot of friends or social activity outside of her family. Saad had met Iqbal 9 years earlier in Abu Dhabi, where she was living with her parents after returning from living in the U.S. She had gone to dental school in America, and she had gotten married to an American man who was quite a bit older than her. But they didn't. I don't know. It doesn't seem like they didn't get along particularly well. But she just was under relentless pressure by her parents to marry a Muslim. So she finally came back and lived with them in Abu Dhabi. I don't know that she and Saad had an arranged marriage, but it was like through connections. She met Saad and married him, and the couple moved to Claygate back in England, where Saad had grown up. And they started living in the family house where he had lived. He and his brother had lived. His father now living in Spain. Mm-hmm. Iqbal stopped practicing dentistry. She was a practicing dentist back in the U.S. She stopped practicing dentistry in England and started to raise a family with Saad and living a very quiet life, which is actually, I guess, in quite a contrast to her much more outgoing life back in the U.S.
Huh. Do you know where in the U.S.?
Somewhere in the South, weirdly enough. I can't remember. I know. Weird. So they, again, as I mentioned, they lived in Claygate in Surrey County. They had two daughters, 7-year-old Zainab and 4-year-old Zina. Zainab, sorry about that.
I'm just assuming.
Know one?
Yeah, Jack had a friend.
Okay.
Zainab in middle school or in elementary school.
Okay. She was 7. Zina was 4. By the late summer of 2012, Saad's brother, Zaid, who was 3 years older, had been living with the family in their home in Claygate for about a year following the death of their father, Kadim, who had died the year before in 2011 in Spain. He had been living in Spain for quite some time. Their father had been a very successful entrepreneur and businessman in England and in Europe, mostly from selling toilet paper and poultry.
Oh, that's odd combo.
Not just that, it was just like, how do you decide, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a businessman, and my things are going to be, I don't know, getting toilet paper and selling them in England. And also chickens and selling those in England. It's weird.
It is.
Recently, though, the two brothers had a falling out.
Uh-oh.
It was over the estate of their father. He was not like super rich, but he left a significant amount of money and some property and some bank accounts. By the way, also some, as we'll find out later, some secret bank accounts. So Zaid, the brother, had recently moved out of the home in Claygate. It was, by the way, it's about a 7,000 person. It's a really picturesque village of about 7,000 or so, but it's only like 18 miles away from like the middle of London.
Really?
Yeah, it's unusual. So they live. I mean, I guess you can call it a suburb, but it looks to me like it's kind of out in the country, but it's surprisingly close to London.
That's where I want to live.
Do you?
Yeah.
In England?
No,
In
just like a cute little village,
Yeah.
not too far from a big city.
Okay, those are hard to find. I don't know. I think their father had bought the house, and they actually, the two brothers actually co-owned it.
Okay.
And so Zaid, I guess, was a little bit down on his luck and been living there for about a year or so, but they started getting into these fights and these hassles. Mostly it was over their father's estates. They were battling over it. Saad thought that Zaid was kind of trying to take advantage of him, was trying to get like his Spain flat that their father was living in and sort of buy him out, but on the cheap. Saad apparently thought, though. So they were having some troubles. At the time this occurred in September of 2012, they were no longer even speaking to each other.
Wow.
Yeah. And Saad had recently changed the locks on the Claygate home.
Wow.
And he thought that his brother had stolen some valuable items. So he was basically locking them out.
Goodness.
And they were in a bad way.
Yeah.
So maybe for these reasons, it seemed like a good time for a vacation. It's a getaway. So they decided to go on a caravan trip to France. They would love to go to France. They like to camp. They had pulled the caravan behind their BMW station wagon and drive it under the channel and into France, and then from across France into Savoie, which is sort of middle eastern France, again near the border with Switzerland, not too far from Lake Geneva. And where they wound up was a very pretty lake in the mountains called Lake Annecy, or Annecy, if you look at the French pronunciation in YouTube.
Okay.
So they wind up there. It's kind of, think of it like the French Alps, but it's not like, when you get there, it's not like it's super rugged. It's, we're going to go through they're going to be driving along a road, and it seems like you get that sense that it's mountain country. It's a rugged road. It's a rugged area, but it's not like it's, foreboding. There's lots of villages all over the place. There's lots of tourists in the area. So think about that. A very picturesque French Alps kind of a scenic area. The family had brought along Iqbal's mother, Suhaila al-Alaf. She was 74 years old. She lived in Sweden, but she was actually visiting and staying with Iqbal's older sister in England, just about an hour or so away from where the al-Hillis lived in Claygate.
This is quite an international family.
Yes, it is. It really is, yeah. The family arrived in the area around Lake Annecy on September 2nd. And they checked into a little campsite. They would camp in their caravan. I don't know if it was a little. I haven't seen it, but I think just a little camper that they towed behind the BMW station wagon.
That'd be a trailer.
A trailer. Well, in England we call it caravans. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just we're going to use the words.
But you just
park,
called it a
use the word
camper.
boot.
So I'm saying it wouldn't be a camper in that instance. It would be a trailer.
We're going to use the word parkway. We're going to use the word car park. So let's get used to it. They then moved 2 days later on September 4th, a Tuesday, to a new campground just south of Lake Annecy. And it's in the Haute-Savoie region. It was very near a little town called Chevaline, which has a huge population of 200.
Wow.
70 total homes in little Chevaline. This little village. So again, we're near this big lake. It's a campground. It's a really pretty area. They set up camp. And Saad goes over, I think this is probably a central area, maybe where they, the little office or whatever. And so he starts chatting up the proprietor of the campground. And he's asking, like, hey, do you have any ideas for, like, day trips? We want to go on a walk in the forest, a trail, or something like that, the whole family. I've got 2 small kids and an old grandma. So I think something not too,
difficult.
Yeah. I wasn't going for that word. I was trying to think of a better word, and I failed miserably. I'm so embarrassed. So, strenuous.
We have the ability to edit.
We're going to do that.
FYI.
He didn't want to go on a too overly strenuous kind of a trip. You might call it difficult, but I'm going to call it strenuous. And so the proprietor suggested that he drive along the route forestière domaniale de la Combadière. I nailed that pronunciation. Anybody in France will tell you that.
They have de la in French.
Avda means the same thing.
Wow.
Basically, it means the Combadière State Forest Road. And Combadière is like kind of like pronounced comb deer or coom deer, like the last word is deer, but it's D''IR. It means essentially the Eyre forest.
Okie dokies.
I don't know. No, that's foresty. I don't know what it means, but it's a
You
road.
could just translate all of these.
I did, and it wasn't good. The translation for coom deer was coom deer. Okay, so it's like, yeah, not helpful. So this, I think of that again. I want to set the scene. It's a narrow and kind of winding mountain road, lots of, twists and turns to it. It's got basically the forest rises up on both sides, these mighty pine trees on both sides of this forest, and it's through this, really gorgeous forested country. Mm-hmm. So after lunch in the morning of September 5th, the family unhitched the BMW, and from the caravan, to leave that behind, they just took the BMW and they started on their scenic drive up this narrow mountain road south of Lake Annecy and kind of into the mountains. They're choicing along the road for a while. On the way up, they pass a cyclist who's trudging up, and they move on beyond him. There are multiple turnouts. I've actually gone up on Google Maps a long time on this road, and you see these little turnouts. There's even like little. It's rugged country, but the climb doesn't seem like it's super steep. I even saw like pedestrians walking along the side of this narrow road. It's got little bitty dirt shoulders along it, and every once in a while there'll be a turnout for a car to pull over. So it seems, they're going to go for a little hike. They're just finding the right spot. And at one point, the Combadière, and when I say that, by the way, I mean the road. Okay, it eventually it kind of ends. The public portion of it ends. There's a little bit of a wider turnout, including kind of a parking area, and this little area is called Les Martinets, which means the swift, which I think is a reference to the deer, the river deer, which follows along the road trail for much of the way. It's a swift little mountain river kind of a thing. And so Les Martinets is actually named. It's a little, it's like an area that you can get out, you can park your car potentially, and there's sort of a staging area for the walking and hiking trails that trace away from this turnout. There are various trails. It also, by the way, is the end, though, of the public part of the road, so you're not allowed to drive any further. It turns into more of a narrower, more mountain, more like a forest road after that. So and it has signs saying stop here.
Yeah,
you're not allowed to go any further. There is like a map on a wooden posting though by the parking lot and this Les Martinets, this bigger turnout. And it shows you some trails that you can walk along.
Okay.
And start there at the trailhead. So Saad pulled the BMW into this widening area, in this little parking lot, if that's the right word. And he and his older daughter Zainab, damn it, they get out to check the wooden sign that provided the directions for these different trails into the forest. It is 2:45 p.m. in the afternoon.
Okay.
Brett Martin.
And this is September
5th.
Okay.
Brett Martin was a former Royal Air Force pilot, now living in France in 2012. He was an avid cyclist, and he was on a holiday in the Annecy Lake area. He was he's pedaling up the road, the Combadière, and he's a little annoyed when another cyclist passes him right by, and he tries to keep up for a minute, but then he falls behind. He's apparently not as in good a shape as that guy is, and he just moves back onto his own pace and keeps on pedaling up the Combadière. The guy was lost in one of the many curves just ahead of him, so he loses sight of him and just goes about his business cycling up the roadway. It's not long later, probably just a few minutes later. I've tried to find a perfect timeline for it. It seems like it's a short time later, but probably in minutes. I can't tell you if it's 3 or 10 though.
Okay.
So Martin, on his ride, he crosses over a little bridge that spans that swift river that trails along much of the side of the Combadière Road. And then, and by the way, when it does this, it goes over the river, and the river is kind of loud. that may be important.
Yeah.
By the way, there's a loud rushing water kind of a sound as he crosses over that bridge and as he's near the water. Again, for much of the way, the road almost sort of traces along the banks of the river just to one side. Not the entire way, but much of the way that happens. So you have this rushing sound of the river next to you quite a bit as he's riding up the road as Brett Martin is doing that. Not more than a few hundred meters later, he comes to the Les Martinets turnout, where the al-Hillis had just parked not that long before. When he gets there, he comes to a dead stop. The first thing he saw was a lightweight racing bicycle lying right in the middle of the road. And he thought, what's going on? That's weird. It looks like a really nice bike. Who would leave their bicycle, their nice cycle, right in the middle of this road? Then he heard something. He looks up, and he sees a little girl stumbling along the roadway, and suddenly she collapses into the middle of the road.
Oh, no.
He goes closer. He sees very quickly that she's bleeding, badly bleeding. She has clear injuries all about her, mostly about her head and her upper body, and she's bleeding from these very, very bad injuries. Brett, a former RAF pilot, had some CPR training, so he rushes to her, and he gently picks her up, and he moves her off to sort of the side of the road at the edge of that widened turnout, that parking lot / turnout that is Les Martinets. And he lays her down in the recovery position, and he looks up, and he sees this maroon BMW parked there on the side of the road. Not apparently in the parking lot, but on the sandy dirt by the parking lot right there in this turnout. He lays her down on the ground. It looks to him that it's a BMW. It's a maroon BMW station wagon, and is sort of backed into the dirt and is facing the road.
Okay.
So he recognizes that vehicle. It had passed him not that long before on the narrow road, just a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
It was before he rode over that bridge with the rushing river Ire.
Yeah.
And he also remembered the British license plate and that the driver was on the right side of the car. So he sees that's a British car. The steering wheel's on the wrong side for France.
Yeah.
And he recognizes the British license plate. He notices the BMW's engine is still on, and the rear tires are spinning.
Oh, no.
But they're in this really sandy patch of ground, so it essentially becomes stuck. The car was still spinning, still as if it was trying to reverse, but it couldn't move.
And nobody's in the car? Or,
we'll see.
Okay.
That was when he noticed that there was a man, maybe in his 40s or so, lying in a pool of blood in front or along the side of the BMW. He figures, okay, that guy's wearing cycling gear. That guy must be the cyclist that passed me up a while ago, and he must have had that bike that was sitting, bicycle right there in the middle of the road. He's the owner of that abandoned bicycle. So, and that was just a few minutes ago. So it seemed to Martin at the moment that, okay, there's been a car accident. Somebody, maybe they ran that cyclist down. There was something happened here. So he rushes to the cyclist to render what aid he could, and he immediately realized that he was wrong. This was no accident, because the cyclist had multiple gunshot wounds to the head.
Oh, no.
Including one right between his eyes.
Yeah.
He was dead. So Brett Martin looks up to the BMR, and he noticed that it is...
To the BMW?
The BMW, what did I say?
BMR.
I'm going to redo that. Below market rate.
Yep.
Okay, hold on. It's in my world. So Martin looks up at the BMW, and he notices that its windows are riddled with bullet holes. And I think there might have been a couple in the car, but basically it's like someone was shooting at the windows repeatedly.
Yeah.
So he went to the car, he looks in, and then he freezes again because there's blood just everywhere. And inside he sees a man in his maybe 40s or 50s. He's slumped over the front seat. There's blood everywhere. He's been shot in the head. He looks to the back, and he sees two adult women. One, again, maybe in her 40s or so, and then an older woman. And he could see that, like the cyclist, all of the victims had been shot in the head.
Right.
He must have, I don't know if he must have smashed the driver's side window. That was, again, bullet riddled driver's side window, because he's able to reach in and turn off the car
Yeah.
to stop the wheels from spinning in reverse. That's when, by the way, he notices that the car's gear was in reverse. So he turns the car off, and he's freaking out now. He grabs his cell phone. He gets absolutely no reception whatsoever. He's up here.
Of course.
It's way up there. He knows that the wounded little girl is still alive. She's clinging to life.
Yeah.
But he's thinking a couple of things, actually. Like, okay, I need to get help. I don't want to move her. I can't carry her. I'm on a bike.
Yeah.
But if I leave her, what if she dies? But if I stay with her, she's probably, she could die. And then he even has this realization, to his horror, that, wait, this just happened.
Yeah.
This was at most minutes ago.
The shooter may still be
Could the killer still
around.
be here?
Yeah.
So he's got a couple of reasons. He jumps on his bike, and he frantically starts riding down the hill. So he's racing down the hill to go get help. Maybe, I don't know if he's looking at his cell phone or not. Probably not. He's just racing down the hill.
Yeah.
And after just a few minutes, though, he luckily comes along a car, and he flags them down. And it's a car full of French hikers who headed up to Les Martinets to start a hike.
Yeah.
He pulls them over, flags them down, and gives them a brief, like, there's been a terrible thing happen up at Les Martinets. We need to call the police and the ambulance and everything. So they check. There's one of the persons in the car checks his cell phone, and their cell phone works. So they called the police.
Okay.
Ambulances and police speed up the Combe d'Air toward Les Martinets. They're there pretty quickly, I think. And when they get there, they find that Zainab is lying along the side of the turnout in that recovered position that Martin had left her in on the side of the road, and she's still alive. She's clinging to life still.
Good.
They call for an airlift, and she's airlifted to her hospital, but she's in critical condition. And the medical personnel, check her. They find that she had been shot, but in the shoulder one time. After that, she'd been beaten severely.
Oh my God.
Mostly on her head with some kind of blood instrument. They don't know what yet. She had multiple skull fractures. She had traumatic brain injury.
Oh no.
So doctors induced a coma and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Back at the scene.
It seems like they could do more than just hope for the best.
Well, I'm sure they did.
Okay.
Okay. Phrase, Carrie.
Okay.
Okay. They didn't okay, we've done all we can. No. They were treating her.
Okay, good.
They induced the coma to try to stabilize her.
Yeah.
Okay. Back at the scene of the murders, the police catalog the 4 victims. They see the cyclist on the side of the road now. He has been shot multiple times, and almost all in the head, by the way. And they look at the car, and they see the middle-aged man in the front, and they see the middle-aged woman and the older woman in the back. They're all dead in the BMW with, again, clear bullet wounds they can see from outside the car in the head.
Uh-huh.
They've left the windows as are. They haven't touched anything. All of the victims are clearly deceased, so they know they don't have to render any kind of medical attention whatsoever. And they're very worried that the bullet-battered car windows might shatter if they open the doors and do anything else. And maybe that could disturb some evidence. And these aren't forensic folks. They've already called those people, the forensic specialists from kind of the region, but again, it's an isolated place. It's out in the mountains.
Yeah.
So it's going to be some time. They know it's going to take hours for those folks to get there. So they just are sort of taking care of the scene, roping it off, stopping people before. And
Are they out looking for a shooter?
For? Well, I'm sure
a person with a gun?
By this time, it's happened quite a while ago. I'm sure they did something like that, looking at the surrounding forest.
Okay.
They haven't, to my knowledge, from what I've read, they didn't immediately start combing the forest for a shooter. They have no idea. The shooter, for all they know, the shooter was in a car and is long gone.
Yeah.
They have no idea. So eventually,
wait, I have something to say
Yes.
about, for all they know, the shooter was in the car.
Mm-hmm.
The cyclist that got there first would have noted, right, if shortly before he got there, a car, he passed him going the other opposite direction, because there's only one way the car could have gone.
Yes and no. You're not supposed to go on the forest road, but it doesn't mean you cannot go
Okay.
on the forest road. And that forest road it's a rugged road, but
Yeah.
forest vehicles drive it, so you could have done that. You could have driven out of there on that road, and it would dump you down into the valley, and you'd be nowhere near that place
Okay.
anymore.
So it didn't just go up further into the forest and into the mountains.
No,
There is an outlet.
It did have
Okay.
an outlet onto the woods, yeah.
Okay.
Onto somewhere to other roads, yes.
Okay.
So eventually they're able to identify the people involved, and we know who they are, of course. It's Saad al-Hillis, his wife Iqbal, and her mother Suhaila al-Alaf. The cyclist, because they find identification on him, is a 45-year-old French named Sylvain Moliere, and he lived in the town of Eugene. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, Ugine. It's a 7,000-person village nestled in the mountain valley about 13 miles, about 20-plus kilometers east of Cheveline. So he's from not far away. He'd gone on a pretty long cycling trip. He was a very avid and apparently a very good shape cyclist, because he had passed up Brett Martin. The police would find 21 shots had been fired.
Okay.
One source I read said 25, but I'm pretty sure it's 21. Most of the bullets had entered through the windows of the car.
Yeah.
And it appeared that Saad, in fact, had been shot in the head through the window of the front. The killer did the same thing. He shot down. The women must have been, whether they were cowering or what were they doing, he had shot them through the windows, again, in the head. He was very consistent with his targeting. Moliere, the cyclist, was shot 7 times. He was living with a woman named Claire, his partner, and she had only recently given birth to their baby boy.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so he had been on extended family leave to help with the new baby and also
Right.
his 2 teenage stepchildren. So he was just an avid cyclist, and he was constantly seeking new routes. He had been told about the Combe Deer route about 20 kilometers away on a recommendation of Claire's father. So he's just, as far as we know at the time, he's just wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Police headed back to the campground. They must have found out that that's where the al-Hillis were staying, and they talked to the proprietor there. Remember, Saad had talked to that proprietor and asked about nearby walking trails and things like that, and he had recommended. The proprietor said, "I recommended the Combe Deer and to drive up there." As far as they can tell, he didn't give a specific, like, hey, yeah, go to Les Martinets and check the trails, but they had wound up there at Les Martinets. They talked to the other campers in the area. Hey, do you remember this family, this al-Hillis family? There was a man and a woman and an older woman and a little girl, a little 7-year-old girl. And the camper said, yeah, no, they seemed like a really nice people. They chatted a little bit with them. The 2 little girls played with each other really nicely. They seemed very happy. Just a nice little normal. Wait, what was that? 2 little girls?
I was going to ask, but I
The police
was afraid.
were stunned. That's the first they heard, that there was a second girl.
Yeah.
They remember back. And so one of the little girls that the campers told them about fit exactly Zainab's description. But they described a younger girl, about 4 years old, and they were certain that was their little sister. Mm-hmm. The police rushed back to the scene. There's no sign of a second little girl. They're searching the area, and I'm sure they had searched the area to some degree.
Yeah.
They found absolutely no sign of a second little girl. And the bodies would still remain, remember, undisturbed, because they're still waiting for the forensic team. It's night now, but they're still waiting for the forensic team to come there, to get there and start really going through it and working that car. That's all the evidence they're going to have. Mm-hmm. But they could see clearly and had already seen that there's only one child seat in the back of the car. So they had never considered there being a second girl. They had found the girl, airlifted Zainab out of there. They saw one child seat. There's just no hint that there had been a second child.
7-year-old wouldn't be sitting in a child seat.
That would reason somehow.
I
thought the same thing too. But their reasoning was, well, only one child seat. We found a little kid. I don't know how big Zainab was and how much she weighed, but maybe they assumed she was small enough to get a child seat.
But also not everybody there. Well, yeah, I guess they would have seen her, but
not everybody. Maybe just the first people. They probably airlifted pretty quickly. So maybe the person.
And that's the thing. You don't know. You see this little girl. 7-year-olds probably look tiny to men, and
But now,
it's understandable that they thought that.
It is.
Yeah,
I think so too.
Yeah,
they had no hint until now. And hours. It's been hours.
But
and
you know what
hours.
my worry is?
What?
She's like underneath the mom and the grandma or something like that.
Well, they thought that she had probably fled into the hills. Zainab was found again outside the car, and maybe the two girls had been fled, and Zainab didn't make it. Maybe the little girl made it. So they're thinking, we got to have a search. She might be out here at night, out in this forest somewhere. It's way past dark. So they're thinking about conducting a search immediately. Around this time, finally, the forensic team arrives. It's nearly midnight.
Yeah.
One of the forensic specialists then he accesses the back of the car, and he lifts the skirt of Iqbal al-Hillis, and he sees two brown eyes staring back at him. It's little Zina al-Hillis. She's been cowering beneath her mother's skirt for over 9 hours. She is completely unharmed.
Oh my God.
She had not been seen.
See, that's what I was worried about.
Well,
but better that she's alive than dead. But oh my God.
So her mother and her grandmother and her father were murdered right around her. And she's been she's frozen in terror.
Yeah.
She does start talking, and she just repeats, "Where's mommy? I want my mummy."
Yeah.
To the investigators, because she hadn't processed it. She didn't understand.
She can't. She's
happened.
4.
No. So.
Yeah.
But she's in good shape. She's unharmed. The killer had just simply not seen her. Now, we don't know, but possibly her mother may have I would guess her mother quickly hid her under her skirts, because they're backing up. The car gets stuck.
Yeah.
So they're not able to speed away. And Zainab, by the way, clearly did not make it to the car, but they can't move. He's shot many times through the window. The killer is coming toward him. She hides her daughter, and seconds later she's murdered. Mm-hmm. And thank God he never actually entered the car or opened the doors. Apparently, he just shot through the windows.
Yeah.
So.
But you're assuming it's a he.
It could have been
interesting.
You're right. It could
no,
have been more than
one. 100% was a he.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, Zina.
Zina could offer very little help, though, to the investigators, because she had never been outside the car. And all she remembered was I heard a bunch of loud noises before I hit on the floor. So the shooter then must have, he must have originally shot from some distance away into the windows, and whether he hit them all or not, I don't know. He may have, and so they may already be injured, but or not. But then he approaches, and her mother almost certainly probably hit her before he ruthlessly murders the mother and grandmother. That the family still had their wallets and their cell phones, and there's also a digital camera sitting on the seat. That told investigators that this had not been a robbery.
No.
Apparently.
You don't
murder everyone for...
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't.
No.
Oddly, though, the passports of the family were missing. At least of the adults. I don't know, do you have to have passports for little kids? I honestly don't know the answer to that question.
Well, yeah.
Okay. But all of the family's passports were missing because they found no passports.
In 2012, do you need passports to travel between?
They're EU countries.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if they got.
My guess is you might not.
You might not, but I think they had an indication from other parts of the investigation that they had their passports with them. Maybe they used them as identification when they checked into the campground.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, they expected to see the passports and they weren't there, and they thought that was odd. Why would the killer leave their wallets, their phones, but apparently steal the passports?
I mean, because they had their passports. Well, I guess you wouldn't leave them in your caravan.
No,
you'd keep them with you,
or something like that. Someone's purse or something. So they weren't there. There were no fingerprints and no sign of any DNA traces being left behind. There's really no physical sign of the perpetrator left whatsoever.
Yeah,
that left just the 21 spent bullet casings that was found in and around the car for the police to go on. That was basically almost the entire extent of the evidence that they had. So it seemed clear that when the family had parked at Les Martinets, that Saad and Zainab had exited the car, likely to check that trail information. It's almost certainly what happened. So they get out and say, hey, let's go check and see if this is a good place for us to hike. Later on, we're going to examine the evidence of a mystery motorcyclist, but the police thought it likely, at the time at least, that the killer was already there, that he had already been at the scene.
Wait a second.
Yes.
What's a mystery motorcyclist?
There's going to be a mystery motorcyclist. It's going to be someone who had a motorcyclist who had come along that road and had talked to some forestry workers and would be a suspect.
Okay.
So they didn't know about that yet.
Okay.
They assumed it at the beginning that, okay, it's like a lying in wait murder or something like that. They weren't thinking, were they targeted? Was it just happenstance? But they thought that someone had been like hiding behind trees or maybe in a gully nearby and had jumped out when the al-Hillis parked their car, and when Saad and Zainab had walked away toward that map posted on the other side of the parking lot.
Okay.
So the killer approached, and Saad and Zainab must have fled back toward the car. Obviously, Zainab didn't make it to the car. We don't know why. Maybe but Saad did. And he got behind the wheel and he starts the car and he puts it in reverse.
We don't know any of this for sure.
It's
because
clear. No, that's clear. It's clear that the car had been quickly jackknifed. They can see from the trails; they're deep. That had been quickly sort of jackknifed backwards, as if to do like a
turn around.
Yeah,
sure.
Arced backwards into the sand and then was going to take off. He probably thought Zainab was in the car, but she wasn't.
Okay. I was going to say, do we know for sure that this little scenario that the dad and Zainab got out of the car? And
yes,
because in no world
yes,
do I see a father not grabbing his 7-year-old and getting her in that car.
She's only 7. I would
exactly.
But what he may have done was he jumps toward the right side where the wheel is, and he's thinking, okay, she's jumping in the back, and she just didn't make it, in the back seat, and she just didn't make it.
Yeah, I don't know.
So he grabs and he arcs. It's happening in seconds. There's a shooter coming at you with a gun. Whether he already fired shots, I don't know, but he's coming at you again. He's going to murder you. Mm-hmm. So he arcs the car back. He hits in reverse, but again, the back wheels hit that sand, and he just gets stuck.
Yeah.
And he's frantically trying to get the car moving, but it happened in seconds. Mm-hmm. And now the killer is approaching them, and there's nothing they can do. We'll talk about whether or not Sylvain Moliere was already there, or if he chanced upon the scene a short time later after the killer had completed his murder spree of those in the car and also had attacked Zainab. It's meaningful because there are a lot of folks who think that, hold up, maybe Sylvain Moliere was the actual target of the shootings. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
If that's true, that would mean that almost certainly Sylvain Moliere was there, parked next to, stopped next to the car with Zainab and Saad looking at the map when the killer came out and shot Sylvain first, and then had to shoot the attempted fleeing family because they were witnesses, if that's true. So we'll get to that. Saad and Iqbal had both been shot 4 times. Suhail had been shot 3 times. Moliere had been shot 7 times. That's one of the reasons, by the way. I love the reason. We'll get to that later. Some of the, I'm going to put reasoning in air quotes.
Yeah.
That Sylvain was the target is because he'd been
shot more times.
I'm going to signal what I think of that. I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's not logical. It's not a deduction. There are British investigators who basically pinned their idea that Sylvain was the target based on the fact that he was shot. And they also swear that he was shot first. And I've read so many times that there's some forensic evidence that he was shot first. There's absolutely no way they can tell if he was shot first or not. There's absolutely no way. And indeed, a couple of sources admit that that's just an assumption. So we'll get to that. The al-Hillis were all shot in the middle of the forehead, which seems a little odd because it indicates that maybe they were looking at their attacker, unless they were shot and the coup de grace was in the forehead after they're essentially dead. So they shot not wildly, but from fairly close range, but distance into the windows. They're shot in the head multiple times. Remember, there's been 4, 4, and 3 shots, and that last shot in each of their cases was right into their foreheads.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think probably happened, because I can't imagine you look at the person who's already shot you or is about to shoot you. Moliere had been shot while upright at first, but then also while prone, while lying down, very, very likely with the murderer standing over him. And that last shot was also coup de grace right between the eyes that had ultimately killed him, but he was almost certainly dead by the time that shot was fired. Again, he'd been shot 7 times in the head.
It sounds like a hit.
It sure does, yeah. Until a lot of people think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people still do. And that was that's going to be, as we'll find out, that's going to be the working theory of the French investigators from pretty much from day one. and they think they had a target. Zainab, she must have still been on the scene. So this is happening. Again, this is probably seconds. He starts shooting. They jackknife the car in reverse. He shoots some more. He goes there and he shoots the coup de grace in the head of all 3 adult victims. That really doesn't have to take more than, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. Zainab, presumably frozen in terror. So he turns on her. He shoots her once in the shoulder. At that point, the gun either jammed or he ran out of bullets.
Right.
Because that's when he uses the gun as a bludgeon, essentially, and he beats her, attempting to beat her to death, no doubt.
Yeah.
But luckily, he has not. Right now, she's still in a coma in a French hospital. During the attack, a piece of the gun's handle grip came away and fell off of the gun, and they found it at the scene. The investigators found it. So that, combined with the shell casings, is basically all they have.
Yeah.
But critically, it was enough to tell them what the weapon had been. The gun was a Luger PO6. As a Swiss gun, it's a handgun. It had been standard issue for Swiss soldiers and police officers for decades, but that was back in the 1920s and the 1930s.
Wow.
It's 2012. The gun fired 7.65 by 21 millimeter parabellum ammunition, and it held an 8-round clip, a magazine. With 21 shots fired, that means the killer had to reload twice.
Yeah.
So it seems almost certain that he had those clips ready to go on him. He was very quickly pop a clip out, put it in his pocket, pop a clip in, continue shooting. That indicates to me, at least to most people, that it was not a chance encounter. At least he was ready to do something bad. At least there was some planning involved. Whether or not they were the intended victims or not, no one knows. Or it was Moliere, or if it was just sort of everybody wrong place, wrong time. We'll get into that. But unless the police missed 3 casings, that also meant that the gun must have jammed, because at 21 shots, he would have had 24. He would have had 3 more, but 21 shots, he then started beating Zainab with the gun. So that seems to me that indicates that the gun must have jammed, not running out of ammunition. Investigators were baffled by this choice of weapon. It was an accurate gun. It's a good. It could fire quickly. It had magazines. It was a quality weapon, but it seemed like a relic more than something. Certainly not. Now you just said it a minute ago, and a lot of people first thought is a professional hit.
Yeah,
is a professional going to use a really old gun? I mean,
a weird, pretentious professional who loves his granddad's old gun. Maybe I don't know. Who knows?
Access to that, which
who
maybe
knows?
Doesn't indicate a professional. Is more someone who had access to that gun.
Yeah,
that kind of a gun, because you're right, because their granddad had it when they were in the army.
But also, you think a professional would have a what are gun laws like in France? How hard is it to get a gun?
A professional hitman can get it.
I know.
I'm sure. I mean, unless it's just like it could. Who knows though? It could be a hitman on the cheap who just came there. You don't want to carry it around with you. You get there and you start asking around until you find a gun, and someone sells you an old Swiss gun they had in their army days.
Yeah,
like I said, everybody had them. They were pretty common in the area, in the region still. Again, this is very near the border of Switzerland, so they were all throughout the area. So that's the end of part 1. This is going to be a multi-parter, of course. We're going to next talk about the investigation by the French, where they're going to center on someone very near and close to the al-Hillis, as you might imagine from our background earlier.
I'm already thinking that.
And but the British authorities are going to come on the other way, and they're going to actually start to get at loggerheads with the French authorities about exactly who did what and where. We're going to talk about the theories and this missing motorcyclist, and all the different potential suspects. They went through quite a few, and some of the background to it. You remember we talked about earlier the episode we did on the Dominici affair?
Yes.
And the father of that family had some, maybe spy. Well, some people think the same thing here. Saad al-Hilli worked in some somewhat possibly, a little bit in the satellite technology.
Oh, okay.
And so there was something was he selling secrets? Was there something like that involved? Just the same way that people have suspected that in the Dominici affair.
Really?
Yeah. And then finally we'll kind of, I don't know, we'll put it together in what most likely happened. But again, as I presaged up early on, this is unsolved. We don't know who did it, but I think you can get to a pretty good idea of what exactly happened and very specific about the kind of person who must have done this.
Okay.
At least in my opinion. That will be in the next part of the Annecy affair. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Well, thanks, Dean.
Okay.
And thanks for listening.